Well, I haven't done a video in a while, and I figured I'll just do a simple Sun in Taurus, which is very relevant to the broadcaster. Ich, sozusagen. And as you can see, I'm lying here with daylight. This is daylight. And I'm just lying in my bed. I got my old clothes and my stuff from the old apartment. And I recently moved into a home. After 6 months without one. And that was very exciting. And I'm still processing the change. There were a lot of things that helped me to manifest this location and the property, and there were the things that manifested and the things that were like contrast, and it all happened within conditions that I didn't consider that I would have to run into, as many people in the past 2 years. And of course, many people, even regardless to the transits and the COVID and even the wars, there are so many people who are not having homes, who do not reside in their own residence, or even rented residence. And for me, this is a rented place. It's not my land yet. So I experienced that homelessness experience. And there is a lot to talk about. I don't think I can make it in like this short of video. Or maybe I can. But let's get into the soul in Aries, in Taurus. Sidereally, it's in Aries, actually. So I'm gonna give you a soul in Taurus. And that's just a very general energies, as you know. If you're watching this, then there might be a reason that's connecting with you energetically, or whatnot. So, Sun in Taurus, let's see, what am I receiving? First of all, cognitively, what we do know of Taurus, that it's a relaxation, it's constant, it's an earth sign, it's a fixed earth sign. So it's that place we lean back to, which may be surprising. And also we can't think of Taurus without thinking of, well, I'd call it the four winds, but the four directions. And that would also be the opposite sign, that is Scorpio, and the other two earth signs, that is Virgo and Capricorn. But it's also the four, as in Taurus, Scorpio, and then kind of to the left, you have the poles of Aquarius and Leo. So these are the ones you kind of look into, or maybe I have got it wrong with the poles. I need to remember. But you kind of look into these poles. What you also look into is Venus, that is the ruler of Taurus. So you want to know where Venus is, and what is it doing in the skies right now. It's in Pisces, which is a very expansive place for Venus to be. It's exalted in Pisces, and it's a very happy place for Venus to be. You also want to know where's Venus in your chart, because it's going to activate the sun is going through the Taurus aspect of your chart, and what matters is what house it is. It doesn't matter only what your sun sign is, but also what is activated in your chart. So you want to know what house it is. There are 12 houses, and it depends on the house system you work with. If I work with the whole sign, which is very convenient and very predictive, it is the third for me. If I worked with Placidus, it would be the second and the third. And both have meaning, both have their own view and interpretation. And what's very interesting about astrology is that whenever you land on something and you look at the world through it, something in it works for you. So for me, I look at it as the third house. It will also be my solar return in May 6th, and that would turn the year into a Venus-ruled sign. Which means the third house also means our daily routines. And one of the things that I got even before the solar return was treating the skin conditions. I also have Saturn in my 12th in Aquarius, so that makes sense. And being a holistic health practitioner, I never paid too much attention to the skin. I always like to work with the scent and to kind of sniff essential oils. But now I'm getting to look at touch, which is also very Taurian. It's touch, the five senses, so it's also scent, but it's taste and touch, and taking the time with things. And we know time is Saturn, but with the Taurian energy, it brings us to our senses. So if Saturn is the role of ruler of time, and it kind of rules Capricorn, things that take time to build, for example, and Aquarius, it's the ancient ruler of Aquarius, then the Taurus sense of time is touch. And that's something, and I'm beginning to receive. So receiving, it's also yin sign, so it's receptive. Receptive to touch. Receptive to the pleasure of the senses. And when you're very receptive, it means you're somewhat permeable because you need things to go inside. If I talk about the skin, okay, Saturn, which is easy for me because I got the Venus opposition Saturn, so Venus makes a connection with Saturn. So when I, let's say, rub essential oils or rub a cream into the skin, it absorbs in the bloodstream, so it's permeable. And when you're permeable to touch, when you're permeable to taste, to energy, you do need to take the time to process what you are receiving. So it's being receptive to something requires you to be still, that's fixed. But the remedy to being fixed is stillness, because then you feel safe and you take the time, and then you're more receptive to things, or being receptive to touch. So of course, we have self-pleasure May, which I might do something for, so stay tuned. But being receptive to touch is being fixed, and then earth, the element of earth. So the element of earth brings us to our senses, which brings us back to our body. for those of you who know my podcast, Spirit of Matter. There is also a matter of spirit. And I got Spirit of Matter first, and then I got the Matter of Spirit, like the other. It's kind of like the yin yang side of it, but kind of the other way to look at it. And in general, when you have anything activating your Taurus side of field of life, it's tactile, it's sensual. Let's say if you have Taurus, Mercury in Taurus, let's say, then your senses are very tactile. You need to learn not just by observation, which is eyesight, but also to taste, to touch, to feel into things. And right now Mercury is in Taurus as well. And you really need to study through the senses. You might also tend to express yourself through the senses. But then you would also need to learn how to verbalize things. And your analogies would probably be related with something that stimulates the senses. It can also be related to food, because food is nourishment. And it also governs satisfaction. So lust for food, or the erotic side of food, of cooking, and kind of healing a problem, not by avoiding it, by cutting off something, but actually by taking the time to fully absorb the tactile experience. Let's say if I talk about emotional eating. So if you take a lot of time to experience what is the taste of the food, and your taste buds and so on, so you kind of take the time to see something, and then a couple of things begin to happen. Either you're satisfied with less of what is not nodig, what's not necessary, and you begin to crave what's actually nourishing. And this is also true to receiving touch, and to receiving even the sights that you see. What do you consider as beautiful? What do you consider as pleasing for the eye? For example, if you expect everything to be as smooth as the camera makes it without getting closer, and if you get closer, you see that even though I'm a holistic health practitioner, I'm going to take a look at the skin, and the camera makes it quite smooth and silky, but there would always be a little bit of something here. And when you paint, which is another very Venusian art, when you paint, you usually pay attention to the texture of things, and you understand that a realistic painting draws in not just what is not just one shade. It's more rich when you see. Let's say if I fold, my forehead, and you can see that it's in no way, silky and smoothie. So instead of going to a cosmetic person to kind of fill in the cracks so that nobody would see that, that I'm turning 38 or something, God forbid, you can kind of, look at the face and understand that if I wanted to paint someone and have a realistic painting, I would not omit not that and not that and not the little hue behind the eyes. So taking the time to observe something brings you a sense of connection, which is also Venus. So again, even just the sun going through, or Mercury going through the sign of Taurus, that alone activates the part of your chart that needs a certain trait that is Taurian. For example, my daily routine, I have business, and I realized that if my business would be a baby, it would die. And the third house is also where you have your own business. You begin to have your own business as an entrepreneur. So it's not necessarily the house of being an employer, but it's definitely the house of skills, and skills in the sense of learning new skills, like elementary. Elementary school is more the fourth, but the skills that you use in your day-to-day practice, this is the house of praxis. If the ninth is academic studies, then the third is praxis. And I realized that when I began to practice another profession, and I had to do marketing, and I was doing a lot of very exuberant work, but I didn't rest enough. And so just by noticing that my third house is Taurian, so if I talk for 20 hours a day about how we should, pay attention to our senses, it's not going to serve the job of, let's say, doing that. And then recording, a 20-minute video every once in a while. Because it means that in my daily routine, I need to take care of the senses in a way that allows me the time to process what's happening in my day. And be fertile creatively in this way. Now, this may mean for you another house. Let's say it's the 10th. So the 10th, while it may mean your environment, your working environment has to do with, let's say, cosmetics or beauty, or painting, or singing, or things of value, even cars. So if you have a connection to Saturn, it can be old cars, or restored cars. I have Venus opposition Pluto and Saturn, so it's like rejuvenation, restored ancient cars or something. So what you need to know is that it also means that even if you don't have a connection with Saturn to any of the ruling planets, you do need to be more Taurian about it. You do need to take the time to process what comes in. Because while you may be successful, you will stay more on the fixed and addicted side. And if you are taking the time to process things and taking the time to self-pleasure, or your working environment can be accommodating for that, for those of you who consult to healing your sexuality, your sexual empowerment, or Tantra, that is a Taurus Scorpio pole. So your working environment has to allow for that. While if it doesn't, let's say if you are in a very stressed working situation, or in a very hierarchical place, or any expression of your sexuality will be repressed, and then you will end up being victimized, or you will even end up being harassing or assaulting, simply because the way you express your need in touch, in tactile experiences, in pleasure of the senses, when you repress that and when you don't take the time for that, then it will come out everywhere with everyone. That will make for really awkward situations. So everybody has a Taurus somewhere. Everybody has a Taurus somewhere. Let's say if Taurus is the 5th, so you need to dedicate time to the 5th. You need to dedicate time to the pleasure of the senses in your hobbies. Or you may be a gambler. Because otherwise, which is funny, because I went to visit my mom and she showed me a beautiful song. She has, I believe she has Taurus in the 5th. And I'm her child, a Taurus sun. It's all lunar. And she showed me a song that she likes to listen to, and that was a song about someone who was a gambler. So it's kind of like music, pleasant for the ear, about gambling, and how the gambler kind of noticed the eyes of the people and kind of learns what he has to do in the game and in life according to their eyes or their eyesight. Which one way to interpret that would be the senses. So that is how triggering of that Sol in Taurus can come about. And indeed, I just came to visit when the sun was ingressing into Taurus. So the sun in Taurus is going to kind of accentuate that Taurus part in your chart. Also, we have Mercury in Taurus, and integrate not only the senses, but also take the time, because that is a way for you to both not get overwhelmed and not to be like hungry for sensual experiences. So one could say mindfulness, but also tantra is very very supported. And May is the self-pleasure month. So that's very tactile experience that you have with yourself. Being alone. Being alone. Kind of understanding that being without any other person right now is not something that is dreadful, but it is pleasurable, because with you can do a lot of things that you can't show on camera that make your skin glow. No? And it's also very important to introduce changes gradually and to make a conscious effort to explore new tactile pleasures. With Mercury, it's going to be a bit easier, because Mercury is kind of like constantly changing and transforming. So it's going to remind you that, the way you sense the world, when you are in a place, you sense it when you take the time, which is not necessarily Mercury, but it's going to expose you to the need to not be so fixed about the thing that pleases you every day, but rather look at that thing that pleases you every day in new eyes. Because otherwise, if you're not looking in new eyes at your same, cup of tea or cup of coffee, you will not get bored of it, but you will definitely need more coffee. If you're Taurian in your nature, you would definitely need more coffee. Now, extend that to relationships. You do have to take care for that cup of coffee. Somebody has to make that cup of coffee. And when you take the time to appreciate something in new eyes, then you can just say, oh, well, tomorrow I'll have the same cup of coffee, but I kind of add something extra to it. Or I kind of drink it, I don't know, in a new cup. Or I kind of think about what new things am I learning today while I'm processing this cup of, tea or cup of coffee. That's the Torian time. I'm brushing my teeth. How am I brushing my teeth differently today? What do I think about when I brush my teeth? What new thoughts came about today? When I do that, for me, I realized I need to buy another brush. It's kind of like, okay, I've been with you for a while. It's time to try something new, like that sesame oil you've been planning on learning how to use. That's the thing with aromatherapist that we do. We gargle oil, and I need to get used to that texture. It's like, oh, that's that thing you wanted to do with the sesame oil. That might be the time to reintroduce that. So, and as you can see, I'm talking about very basic experiences. And matter. Okay, the sensual pleasure of matter becomes spiritual. Of course, immediately you may think what we now know as Tantra, but Tantra originally is a religious practice that literally means to delve into the senses. It's not necessarily only sexual pleasure, but understanding this is life energy, so you can caress your skin. And if you really do it, if I just do it like that, it's nice. But if I'm going to do it a bit slower, I'm going to have to turn off the camera because I'm going to get noisy. And that is the same with everything you concentrate on contently and are pleased by. It's orgasmic. So I know there's an eclipse on the 30th. The people say, oh, it's an exalted eclipse. The North Node is going to be not too far from Algol. It's true, there are, it's not the 3 degrees. But yes, there is an eclipse. And there are energies that are there. There is a Pluto retrograde that may or may not touch, may touch the Pluto return point for the chart of the US. There are the thingies out there. But while we have the Sun in Taurus, we need to kind of celebrate, especially when Venus is still in Pisces. We definitely want to celebrate those sensual experiences and remind ourselves to take the time. It's true both to the Saturn-ruled areas of your chart that are Capricorn and Aquarius, and for the Taurus, or I dare say the Venus ruled, which are Libra and Taurus, that are all activated by just Mercury and the Sun going through Taurus. So let's say you have your Venus, let's say in Virgo in the 3rd. So for you, it's both going to accentuate the sensual experiences, but you also have to remind yourself that your Venus is in a detail-oriented, and the frequency, Virgo is so frequency-oriented, it's ruled by Mercury, that you need to take the time in your daily routine to just concentrate on both the sensual experience of, let's say, as funny as it sounds, the details of your day. Bring the body to the details of your day, which you might naturally be doing if you're Venus at Virgo, because you sense the details. You sense the frequency of things. Let's say if you look at an astrological chart, you feel energy. So oil is very good. Oil is very important. You would sense what oil you need to anoint yourself. Hey, to protect your skin, but also to eat healthy oils that are going to support your nervous system. So all of you omega-3s or whatnot, I'm not saying omega-3 because I'm not channeling for a specific person right now. And so I don't have, the only general thing that I can say is that probably you want to look at oils and what oils feel intuitively right for you for this transit. But it's also important, especially like the let's say Virgo, to take the time. Because you're called in for that. You're called in to not overwork yourself. You're always called in for that, but now it's like, oh, wait. And in Venus, it's like, okay, you need to take the time with, let's say, your relationships. Taking the time would benefit your business if it's a third house. Would benefit your relationships if it's a seventh house, but it's a Venus anyway, so Venus is your significant other. It's also going to benefit the relationship. So don't work yourself too hard. Anything more for the Sun in Taurus? Yes, that you need to remember that sidereally it's the Sun in Aries. And for Aries, if we, Aries is it's not the exact opposite because it's before Taurus, but Aries is that which breaks through. It's like when the head of the child comes out of the vagina. It's kind of like that house. It's that for houses. It's like the first house, but it's not necessarily equating with Aries. And yet, the signification of Aries is like it's the first, the bud of something. Let's say clove buds, that's significant boundaries, and we do say that. So Aries is also ruled by Mars. So we have to understand that we have some sort of an overlap. That your sign is a Schrodinger's cat. And there's that overlap, which may be very useful to the understanding of Taurian people, because you say, oh, the person is Taurian, isn't he supposed to be like relaxed and so, but eventually you find out sometimes people that are still not knowing how to govern their sons, very neurotic human being, always working way too many hours, way too addicted to tactile pleasures, and very can be very stubborn. So what you need to understand is Aries is the head, which is also not only mind, but it's our head. And what's in it? Aries is very it's a fire sign. And Aries is about fast motion. It's about explosive power. It's about being headstrong. And so that having, a sun in Taurus tropical also means having a sun in Aries sidereal. So the high frequency is innovation. And if I bring it together, I can say, well, you could have a groundbreaking. What is groundbreaking? Ground is earth. Okay, hopefully not earthquakes, but with Uranus and Taurus. But groundbreaking, innovative patterns, experiences, solutions to problems. That are also at the frontier of something. Now, of course, we all know what happens when these things are like, I actually say that, okay, when there was the Arab Spring, one of the things that happened in, or like that was in the news, that soldiers were getting Viagra to rape people in Algeria. And that was like, that's a very, that's a big misuse of technology and medication. But the high frequency of that overlap of tactile experiences and innovation is actually healing. Let's say healing from sexual abuse. And we had the eclipse in right opposition Algol in November, which could literally eclipse certain traumas or eclipse the effect of certain traumatic experiences and introduce the new. And so you could have the use of sensuality in your day-to-day life to rejuvenate the mind-brain, which basically is, and in the endocrine system. I know a lot of people, me included, have had alternations or changes to their menstrual cycle following the vaccines. And note that my language is very clear and is very concise following the vaccines. And when that was a very wide experience of many people. So actually what I did with my menstrual blood was ceremonies, like painting over my body and manifesting with the menstrual blood. So I was like, okay, like we got this thing that was interfering with our system, and whenever we wanted, let's say to get on a plane, or to get over with it, or to say, oh, well, I have this friend or this colleague that I can't visit because they can't do vaccination. So they have sensitivity to vaccines and I want to be considerate. And then you're like, oh, shit, now I'm... now my fertility is interfered with. So an innovative experience was to paint with the blood, and to manifest with the blood, and to use a tactile experience to kind of manifest in reality and be in deeper contact with the desires of my womb, of my menstrual blood, and even to taste myself, which is like, oh, like if I expect somebody else to do that, then why won't I enjoy the experience myself? Speaking of self-pleasure May, though I did that before May. But that would be a great thing to do. If you're menstruating this month, try to taste yourself. Try to do free bleeding, which is an overlap with the, freedom and innovation, and something that is that you haven't tried before. Try something you haven't tried before that is actually positive, that is actually nourishing, that is actually rejuvenating, and that can really introduce new life to your tropical Taurus sidereal Aries house. So yeah, we get into the 40 minutes video, which is a blessing for my new memory card. Is working. And so, it has been a while since I've done a video. I'm not going to do a sign by sign thingy, or maybe I am going to do it later. If I get enough requests for it, I'm going to do a sign by sign breakdown. So, but you need to ask for it. So, I am Talisher on Twitter. I'm Shirley Youngblood on Instagram, and Channeling Science Plus Panda on YouTube. And less than 20% battery. Need to fill the tank. So, if you want to tell me what house is your Taurus sign in, where is your Venus? What house and what sign is your Venus? And what housing system you work with, then I might give you a short message just for you in the comments below with a prediction for you, or with a channeled message for you for this transit. So I do receive Ethereum as donation, and one of the great things I had today in mind was like, for my podcast, it was like, if you don't want to ask what am I selling, then donate to this podcast. And I do receive Ethereum, but you're going to have to turn to me in private, and that means either on Instagram or Twitter, or Facebook, Shirley Tali Youngblood, and then I can give you my wallet details for the transit. So I do receive Ethereum. And yeah, that's just like as much as you are able to. I do want to talk about banking, perhaps extensively in another video, but I do want to talk about banking. And when I was in Netherlands for a month and a half for the winter shelters, I realized that there's a huge problem with international banking, and there's a huge problem with the real estate market and our banking system. And while I'm all for receiving, money through a bank, and I have an IBAN that you can have like a transfer to, I also understand that the way things are is not logical in any way, shape, or form. I know a lot of people who went through financial violence, myself included, that had limited access to banking, but also to receiving money, because it's like I can't receive PayPal if I don't have an international credit card, which I wouldn't normally use. Unless I need to purchase something, which I say, oh, well, couldn't PayPal just connect with my bank? Well, sometimes it needs a certain bank that works with PayPal. And there's just a big issue with who are the people that are supported by banks, and why do banks give up a lot of depth that those people have, and because they think they would get a hold of the property if they just give this up. which doesn't mean that the banks don't have the power over the wealthy people, because they do. and, and I was in a convention that was a finances convention, and literally the bank sponsored it. Everybody who was considered like the top rich people in the state of Israel joined the conference, and that was like a decade ago, and I was like, I'm sure there were many cents. But that was like, everybody hates, I guess the global will be, before Trump became the US president, everybody hates, let's say, people like Trump, or Bezos, or, just rich people, because it's like, oh, they have so much, and if they have a debt, then somebody just skips over that and they continue to do business as usual. While if you had broken out of a violent relationship or left the workplace because of sexual harassment or whatnot, then your whole credit history will be affected by that, and you will not even have the means to pay the lawyer, because you don't have like the banking system that you need to support that. And that seems very reasonable, but those rich people are governed by the banks. And so I'm not saying that digital coins is like the best solution, or that it's going to solve everything. And we all know that there can be big issues with that. And especially now when there are so many people that do not have an address, then, in many places you can't open a bank account, or you have to have a particular bank that is okay with your not having an address, which may or may not be respectable in other, places of commerce. And then everything gets digital. So it's like, well, if everything gets digital, so why won't we just, do digital coins? And there's that. But then digital coins are not accessible for people who do not have digital, cell phones or whatnot. So it's kind of like, what about commerce? So for me, meanwhile, I figured that I do receive Ethereum. I do have an IBAN for my bank account, for people who do want to transfer money. I need to check what points can I receive, and that's simply stated that if you don't want to ask what am I selling, and you want me to keep posting content, then the best thing to do would be to donate through this platform, so that I can have another platform if needed be. Because it means that I will be able to talk about a lot of things that people who are dependent on sponsors and platforms to speak can't talk about. And this is beyond just the freedom of speech. It's also, if we talk about the sun in Taurus, it's also our tactile experiences. If you get blocked by talking about, let's say I have Venus perfected year starting 6th May, and my Venus is also opposition in Pluto. So I can talk about Venus opposition in Saturn, about, the word Tantra and some skin routines, but Pluto is the butthole. Do I need to have an open, an OnlyFans account to talk about how to deal with the Pluto opposition Venus through pampering both your Venus and your Pluto in your body? And that is it's as simple as that. It's not just freedom of speech. It's just something that could help you process and cope and heal and remedy and ease a lot of things that you may have been dealing with for I don't know how long. So there's just one thing that came about. And so, and then there's another thing that came about, like, it's true, I'm an aromatherapist, but do I have to like market my products to you where I might or might not be able to send it to your country, and kind of have a product that I market, and put this video on necessarily to market my products, which may or may not be marketed anyway, but that would be from the pleasure of creation, and then that would necessitate me talking about my product or talking about something that leads to me selling my product, rather than just talking about my product when it comes up and talking about a million of other things that the product is just this conversation that you're purchasing whenever you are able to dedicate the time and the wealth for that. And so the more donations I get, the more I'm able to give you information that is truly accessible. Because to make an essential oil, cream, or blend accessible to you, I would need to be like big pharma. And then I would not be able to channel for you, which is what I actually do. I would not be. This is like a luxury product to make it accessible, like for everyone. While I can absolutely give you certain tips on that are general, like intuit the oil that's going to work for you for this transit. That's great. Without actually having, and by the way, I sell this oil with blah 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 that is great for this and this and this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, but it might just not be the thing for you. It might not be the right thing for you. And to actually get to know you, I need the time and the space. And even if I do have a model that's like fully subsidized client for every client that pays full price, even then, it limits a lot the number of people that I can see, and it limits the time where I can give you information that is very useful for you, that can help you deal with a lot of things, or focus on good things, or be very beneficial for your life, or just be a great time of pleasure of your hour with your cell phone, or whatnot, and just focus on that, instead of trying to make you believe that if you buy this oil from me, then all of your problems will be resolved, and whatnot, which is eventually where you have to go to when you need to believe that as a person that is a merchant, and you need to believe that as a client, that you just buy this one product, it's going to change your entire life. It will, but you will also need to buy a ton of other products to change your entire lives. And while I am infatuated with creating products and creams and merchandise and whatnot, I'm also really into delivering knowledge without that content necessarily having to lead anywhere else. And I need the time for that, and I need the resources for that. And if you pay for just watching this, then you won't have to ask yourself, well, what is this girl selling? And I won't have to ask myself the same question when I make the content, because I will just be able to deliver you this beautiful knowledge, and we can exchange that valuable, time and credit, without having to sell you that when I do come up with a product that is like, oh, you really need this. Your life is not the same without this. You will suffer tremendously if you won't buy my product. All kind of that stuff where it's like, oh, I came up with this wonderful new thing that is really enhancing and I really enjoy it. This is my creation. And if you feel like buying it, that would be wonderful addition to your, whatnot. Um, and, and that is more like the way I feel like making commerce than thinking about what do I want to get my client to do with every piece of content? What do I want to get my client to buy with every piece of content that I put out to the world? That's disturbing. That's that. Um, and that being said, if you still can't afford paying for my content, then you both absolutely have this for free and you have this energy for free. And I encourage you to try on my tips and set the intention. When I came up with Spirit of Matter, I said I want to succeed happy, and it took me on a journey of self-rejuvenation. It's beyond self-healing, self-rejuvenation that I could not even imagine, that I'm still undergoing, because while I was in between homes, and I experienced an experience that many people experienced. I did have Jupiter in my first house, and I did have a lot of inner growth that was even happy within those transits that were like, nobody in the world is supposed to go through that, but many people do. And there was nothing that I could say that could change that. But there was definitely a lot of inner growth that could heal many things that made my life experience a lot more rich and vivid. And that is something that's worth sharing. And those are things that I don't want to necessarily wait until they turn into products and talk about the product, because at the end of the day, it's a real life experience of a human being, regardless of the products or the skills or the methods, because every human being is different and every life is sacred. Almost every life is sacred. So, yeah. And all of those experiences got me to think, amongst many other things, about, what I'm doing, how am I doing that, how do I want to feel at work, how do I want to feel, what energy do I want to create from and create with, and broadcast. And that's how this video came about. In my comfy little rented apartment on the hills, very close to one of the greatest tourist attractions in the world. And there are a lot of things that I deal with as anyone, but then there are the things that kind of give it the sense of proportion. It's like, okay, a lot of people pay a lot of good money and save a lot to get to where I'm able to go through nearly every day, if I so desire. And drink a coffee there, or go to bathe in the water, or whatnot. And that took a lot of time with myself to understand that those things, that they're not luxury. Access to clear water is not luxury. Access to the sunbeams at every season of the year is not luxury. Having your own space is not luxury. And when you're homeless, then you do kind of, you think about the place and it's like, oh, every place is a shelter. That's what people offer homeless people, shelters. And you kind of realize the difference between a shelter that's very appreciated and a home. And it's something that definitely is worth delving deeper into. And so many people are living in shelters. Their bodies suffer, their nervous systems suffer. They get a lot of diagnosis for who they are or who they become when they don't have those very basic needs of time and space and temperature and nourishment in spirit and in matter provided. And they try to go about nourishment in roundabout ways. And that's that. Like I've seen one of the places that hosted me, I've seen like a high-tech center, and there were a lot of car brands, and I just went in, like you could, that was my cup of coffee, to go in and, you know, to speak with the vendors, to speak with cars. And one of my experience was the Cadillac. It literally said New World Standards. And it's kind of like it's the first car I dared to sit inside the driver's seat, and I still don't have a driving license. And I just dared to sit inside the driver's seat, and the Cadillac was like, and the thing, a guy's like, you need a car, it's like, you need a man, you need a car, you need a man you can take the rubber off with. And when it perpetually worked through my energy and my manifestations, and I was like, you need a world you can take the rubber off with a man. You need a world, you know, a woman can take the rubber off with a man. I'm both a woman and a man. And it was kind of like, whoa. Or, and then it was like, oh, there's the Cadillac man. And the oils I was with was lavender and orange oils. So lavender is heart chakra. It's also third eye. It's also Mercury. And like the purple. And purple is interesting when you think about gender and stuff. And the orange is the sex chakra. The belly, the womb. And so the beautiful things about these shots is that you only need to see the face. So and that's like, it takes me back to Zoom calls where you have all these things about the broadcasters, even before the COVID, or like about the broadcasters, like underneath the table you don't see anything. You see people are wearing their slippers, or we're having like short pants, and nobody has to know, or, you know, what you're doing or whatnot. And that's like the comfort of not being visible. So yeah. So with the COVID, we had that in Zoom calls. People got a lot liberated, and for me, it was like, oh, I just, my cup of coffee and my attempt to, I don't know, look for a job or something is kind of like, oh, it's here around. So, hey, hey, why the hell not? Hey, what if I do? Can I sit in this Cadillac? So, um, and speak with cars, and I get liberated, and I said, whatever, I speak with cars, and whenever the vendors like came to me, I was like, first I speak with the car, then I speak with you, and I kind of began to feel the energy of the place, and I kind of began to feel more at home in those supposedly luxurious, definitely luxurious, um, and then what, when and then I did the same thing with Alexis. And the thing about Alexis, the thing about Alexis, what I got from it, other than remembering my filmmaking history and things that I didn't believe could happen, like the movie I did the screenplay with, the director won the first, like the first place in in the LA Film Festival, like International Film Festival. I didn't see a penny from it, but it was like things I didn't believe could happened, um, and that was very interesting. And also, what I came out with that experience, it was like a luxury car anyone can have. And there are millions of other such stories, and how that experience where people would say, oh, the person would settle for anything, and they're like, but you kind of manifest, like you grow strong desire to own land, because it's like, oh, that's not luxury. It's like, oh yeah, that things needs to be taken care of, but it's like, oh, I'm nourishing myself, and then I'm nourishing my plants with my bodily fluid. I'm nourishing myself, and then I'm nourishing my home. And I'm speaking with my home. My home was like, you guys, like me one me man, it's like, you guys need to go travel. I need some time for myself. Because the way I got here is like understanding that I do need a place, a space, just like the vacuum. It's just me in my own space. It's not a luxury. And I realized that while I was sleeping with three women, like we were three women, in in a room in a hostel in Amsterdam, and it was like this fancy hostel, I know, and I was like, oh, I couldn't sleep because we were all snoring, and I was like, oh, that's good to know, because if I would be a traveler, and they would say, oh, you could get like for so and so euros, you could get like a bed in a hostel at this season, I would say, good. That's great. I'll take it. I mean, well, I don't need more. I just need, a place to lay my head. It's like, but you won't sleep. You will lay your head. That's all you're going to do there. It's like, that's good to know. That's very good to know. And then it's like, okay, when I think about traveling, it's like, it's got to be my own room. It's gonna be my own, and this is not luxury. It's a basic need to sleep well. On the other hand, when I did run into, like in here, I heard snores the first time from the other unit, and I was like, "Who's that? Who's that?" And then I saw who's that. I was sleeping. I managed to sleep, but I was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, I realized who was that. It was the dog of my neighbors. And their snores became music to my ears since then. So there's something you learn about love. Not saying it could work with couples, but it was like, like I got my own place. Somebody snores there. Then it was a dog. And it's such a sweet dog. But you hear her snores. And I just think about that's just a dog snoring. It's so cute that I'm like, it's music in my ears. So those things are fun and funny. And those places where you're like, you think, oh, I just need a place to stay. But then you kind of understand, if you're guided, if you're channeling, if your connection with yourself is growing, and it is, so you kind of understand that what is actually basic, is way beyond what you thought was basic. And that is really important to know, like in general in life. It's both to appreciate what we have and to honor what we have. And if we go back to the sun in Taurus, to take the time to appreciate means taking the time, means having the time to have the time to be thankful. It's to have time. Taking the time to appreciate how was something made, what needs to change. Let's say I sit on, or I sit in an American comfort, massage chair, and it tells me, well, I was made in China. What do you know? And then I look at the ticket and it was like, yeah, made in China. And of course it was made in China because it was hitting the right meridians. And I was like, it's a meridian-based thing. It's not just a massage. It's a meridian-based thing. And I was like, I wonder if the Chinese people who made that were really as well paid as if they would be Americans, which... But then the very fact that people from China made it, they made it according to the meridians. And then the massage you get is like, hitting the meridians. It's infused with TCM concept, where you have shiatsu in your feet massage. So taking the time to appreciate that is something that you need to take the time to make time, and you need to honor time with tactile experience, because just to have time without having that sensual experience within that time can mean a lot of things. But to take the time to appreciate, like for me, I'm ascendant in Pisces, and now Venus is in Pisces, and just when Venus was like around my ascendant, then I had, and then the Sun in Taurus, I had a really interesting experience where I went into this American comfort shop, and I had the massage, and I had like 4 hours of feet massage. And my feet were like, that's how hungry we are. Or reflexology or something. And when I was at the airport, here in Ben Gurion, actually, I was talking about what I received was Sedona, and to one of the personnel, and he was like, "Well, you do it by feet if you have to." and and then the family that hosted me later, it was a full house with a baby, and they had all the shoes, all the particular type of shoes that had accompanied me throughout my entire 6 months of homelessness journey. It was like, oh my God. And right before I left, like the relationships got unhealthy, that I left, that basically made me homeless. So I did a pedicure. I started taking care of my feet. They started taking care of me, and that is another, another story. How to take care of the feet, how to, take the time to appreciate the touch, and so on and so forth. Which of course came about with a lot of fish, fish symbolism, and of course it's Jupiter ruling the ascendant. So I think I'll stop talking about that now, because I think of one thing, and then I had some other videos where I talk about some other things, and then anybody who watches up until this minute probably makes a lot of connections. So, never mind. I will leave you with a taste of more experiences. And, yeah. So that was my long-awaited video. For a sensual update of Taurus. This is a preview for the self-pleasure month. It's not a foreplay, because there's no such thing as foreplay in Tantra. It's all lovemaking. From the minute you open your eyes till the minute you open your eyes. That needs explaining, not in this video. You're gonna need to ask for it.